as we have invested heavily in our market access and taken working capital from the IPO to accelerate opening up more channels like other Medicaid states, other channels like workman's comp, long-term care, etc., we expect then proportionately to improve the profitability and the EBITDA's performance of the company.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined in the studio today by Dr. Mike Griffiths. He's the CEO, President and co-founder of AOTI. Mike, very good to meet you and thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
So Mike, could you start by telling us a little bit about the company? What is AOTI?
So AOTI is a US-based medtech company focused on treating patients with chronic wounds. Patients have things like diabetes or venous insufficiency and develop these wounds that won't heal, and we have unique therapy that patients apply at home that uses oxygen delivered in a unique way, allows these wounds not just to heal, but to heal more sustainably and more durably.
Give us an example of the market that you're targeting with this therapy, Mike.
There's a number of sectors, but probably the one that's most known is patients with what they call diabetic foot ulcers, or DFUs. So these are patients with diabetes, as you know, double-digit prevalence of diabetes in pretty much all the world now. World Health Organization, over 800 million people have diabetes. A third of diabetics will in their lifetime develop a diabetic foot ulcer. And then half of those ulcers won't heal and become infected. The number one reason for diabetic patients being hospitalized are infected diabetic foot ulcers, and sadly 20% of them end up with amputations of their limbs. And we're able to, with our therapy, not only heal these more effectively, but heal them in a way that they stay healed and reduce that reoccurrence.
What's the market opportunity you're seeing, Mike? How big is the market that you're targeting?
I mean, really huge. I mean, in the US alone, they spend over $400 billion on diabetes care a year. They attribute about 80 or $79 billion of that to diabetic foot ulcer care. So, in the US alone, the potential, segment is $80 billion. The advanced wound care segment, itself is identified as a $12 to $15 billion segment.
So you're headquartered in the United States. You're listed on the AIM markets in London. Where is your business focused? Is it purely on the US market?
I'd say it's predominantly on the US market because obviously, like many things in healthcare, that's where the market's most developed with regards to business opportunity. And we certainly have driven most of our revenue to date from the US. However, we are beginning to expand in targeted sectors of the international markets, including the UK, Germany, and the Gulf region of the Middle East. And we do expect over time to expand further internationally as well.
Take us through your business model, because I see you do target the managed care market to some degree.
Yeah, we have because of our outcomes from our therapy, which is supported by very strong clinical evidence and studies showing that we have not just healing efficacy, but long-term healing efficacy, including studies that show we reduce significantly hospitalizations and amputations on these patients. We have a very strong health economic message that we can give, not just to the providers, but to payers. And in healthcare systems around the world, ultimately the payers sadly make the decision sometimes. So when it gets to talking to the insurers and in managed care, we can articulate a value-based proposition as well as a clinical quality of life proposition, which obviously is very appealing to them.
So some recent news, you're now billing in all 6 Medicaid states. You announced that back in December. And at the time of your IPO in June last year, you were in 3 Medicaid states.
Correct.
So you've hit that target that you're looking at.
Absolutely. The business has progressed nicely since the IPO. We're now billing and Medicaid patients in 6 states. We have a further 3 states that we have added as well that we're in the process of then moving towards billing. And we have a bunch more in the hopper that we're bring on board this year.
And you also announced in December that you extended your Veteran Affairs contract for a further 5 years. Yep. So it must be nice to have long-term contracts like that in place.
Absolutely. We've been servicing the Veterans Affairs and the Vets in America, which is about 9 million distinct patients that are treated through the Veterans Administration for over 2 decades now, and they issue 5-year contracts, and we're very proud to be awarded another 5-year contract. As you said, it allows us to have that core business as we diversify now broader into managed care and other sectors.
Where else are you seeing opportunities in the United States at this stage?
So at this stage, as we work towards traditional Medicare coverage, which is the over 65 insurance, Medicaid being those that are underinsured, for instance, Obamacare predominantly, or disabled, We expand into those Medicaid sectors as we're working on moving towards Medicare, but also we've been opening up skilled nursing, long-term care, and the workman's comp sector. So there's a number of sort of ancillary sectors which are quite large in their own right, and our outcomes are resonating there as well.
Mike, I noted that you started patient enrollment for your VLU clinical trial, and that's for the TWO2 therapy. Tell us a little bit about that.
So our focus has been predominantly on diabetic foot ulcers, DFUs, but patients with venous insufficiency that get swelling in their limbs develop these ulcers as well, which are called venous leg ulcers, VLUs. And we wanted to make sure we had evidence of the same quality as we have already for diabetic foot ulcers. So we commenced enrollment in a multi-center, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study to build up the highest level evidence for this indication of venous leg ulcers, additional to what we have already in diabetic foot ulcers.
So take us through some of the news flow then that investors can expect from the trial, for instance.
So as the trial progresses, as we enroll more patients, obviously we will look at data preliminary, based on the study protocol. We would expect across the year, hopefully, to enroll the majority of those patients, and ultimately that's a study that will take a year or two to complete. But we're also going to be looking, like in our DFUs, not just at healing efficacy over the shorter period, 12 weeks, but also on the durability of healing over 12 months, which again is the differentiator because it allows us to deliver long-term outcomes to both patients and to payers.
Mike, AOTI, winner of the Best Newcomer Award at the AIM Awards for 2024, and that was shortly after your listing on AIM. Put forward the investment case. What are investors seeing in the company?
Well, I think we're a growth company. We're predominantly based in the US, which is, as you know, the largest healthcare and certainly medtech market. We've been growing at compound growth of over 30% for the last 5 years. We expect to continue to grow at least that rate moving forward in the midterm. And as we have invested heavily in our market access and taken working capital from the IPO to accelerate opening up more channels like other Medicaid states, other channels like workman's comp, long-term care, etc. We expect then proportionately to improve the profitability and the EBITDA's performance of the company. So we believe a high growth company in a very exciting sector that really has little solutions that give long-term outcomes and resolve the problems.
Mike, I hope you'll keep us updated on your progress. Thank you very much for the introduction today.
Pleasure, thank you.
That's Dr. Mike Griffiths. He's the President, CEO and co-founder of AOTI.